We both work for traditional, and digital agencies, or have experience with both of them. So what kind of questions are you getting from your clients as far as attribution?
ROI and whether they should be doing one thing or the other. I think one of the key questions that comes into play there is whether they're getting any return at all, actually, from some of their channels. The social media that Nicole referred to. There's a whole, there's all sorts of buzz and buzz/hype, I think, about social media in terms of kind of whether you should be doing social media campaigns, and that social media will actually drive traffic and things of that sort. And I think that those are, and from my standpoint, I'm kind of, I think, a little bit more neutral on that. In the sense that they people point toward, for example, the massive increase in referral traffic from those social sites. I forget what it was, CNN or something like that. A majority of their traffic, actually, I'm not sure if it's CNN, some very large site that everyone would know. A majority of their traffic actually comes through referrals from social sites. So the question from a marketing standpoint is, do you engage in a social program that henceforth will drive traffic to your particular site? Well, I don't think it's actually that clear cut. One thing about, and I've learned in many, many years that I would try to impart upon you is that I mentioned correlation earlier. There's a fancy term that they tried out in terms of statistics, which is correlation is not causation, and that just because kind of two things kind of move together doesn't necessarily mean one of them is causing the other. For example, there's been a lot of discussion about that social media, that the amount of buzz and sentiment going on in social media is highly predictive of the success of movie box office receipts, movie success as measured by box office receipts. And therefore, a lot of people kind of jumped in and said, well, we need to create lots of social buzz in order to drive box office receipts. Well, it turns out that those same movies, and that the same ones that have lots of social buzz, have very large advertising budgets. And so what's kind of causing what? Social might just be kind of the tail on the dog, not actually the dog. And so I think that the questions that the marketers are asking is there an actual return? And you need to be kind of very careful when you kind of answer those questions, I think. When there's a very kind of complex multi-channel environment occurring, and it might, I'm not necessarily saying in that particular instance that social has nothing to do with box office receipts, but I doubt it's 100% that if that every dollar that you put into social is going to yield a 20 multiplier over in terms of box office receipts. It's probably a portion of it. It's probably, a portion of the credit should be given to TV, a portion of it should be given to those social campaigns. But you need to kind of carefully design tests and measurement strategies and analyses, and in many cases, to try to kind of tear those things apart. When you're reading blogs or a lot of the kind of media and commentary that's generated, always kind of take their results with kind of a big grain of salt. Because a lot of those companies are selling the thing that they're miraculously saying are what is driving your performance. And in actuality, if you kind of really kind of tear it apart and look at it carefully, sometimes it's very, very shaky.
I would say that, again, my clients, we're getting to the point where we're just beginning to bridge it all together. So sometimes the question is, we have our current media mix, and why would I add something else? How can I tell that that's actually going to help improve? And my answer is, media, internet and online, cell phone, whatever screen you're in front of, that consumption continues to rise. So why would you not want to be part of that? Even if, again, if these clients aren't quite ready to take that next step, you should be in front of them. The analytics that you can provide may not be exact, but you can at least provide some value and say, you know what, we generated this much traffic to the site, and then you can look at the sales increase, did you maybe searches for your store locations have increased, and you can kind of start to attribute things that way. So it's not always, you don't always have that perfect picture. And what is the ROI? Sometimes you just don't know, but you need to go with where the people are. And sometimes with this whole measurement thing with digital, people forget the basics. Is it increasing the sales? Yes. How much? We're not sure, but we can make inferences from all this data. So unfortunately, I wish my clients had the wealth of information that PAC can provide, but that's not always the case. It's not realistic with every client. So.
Yeah, just to add to that on the social front, like Pat was saying, you really should look at your customer too. So, the demographic, for some companies, take maybe like a manufacturer or something totally obscure, their demographic might not really be online all that much. So would Facebook make sense for them? Probably not. Become a fan of, airplane manufacturers. I don't know. But if you really look at
there's like 5 million groups in Facebook.
Yeah, I see.
There's got to be a metallurgical
CBS. But I mean, seriously, we see that our demographic being kind of like 15 to 30-year-old female, they are pretty web savvy. They are heavy readers of blogs and other social media platforms. So if you know that, then okay, well, you might have pretty good response rate from Facebook and Twitter. And so as a result, we're heavily involved in Facebook and Twitter, and hundreds of comments and things like that, and we can measure that. But I would just say, know your audience, know your customer before making those decisions. Or if you are working with clients, don't try to force that on them. Really focus on the other channels that could be more beneficial to them, if that makes sense.
Go ahead. I was just going to kind of amplify what Nicole said, because I think I came down kind of very hard on the measurement ROI side, is that I very much agree with her in the sense that there has to be a certain degree of experimentation, and that in many cases you don't know, what the return is, and you might never really get a good handle on the measurement. But I think it most definitely is a situation where if you don't at least do some testing and exploration, you will never know. And there's definitely some evidence that in many of those channels that there's a tremendous amount of engagement. The 15 to 25-year-old cohort right now is heavily engaged in those channels. And it's like she said, if that's the channel that they're participating more so than not, TV viewership in that cohort is like plunging right now, then if you're going to try to market to those people, you need to figure out those channels. And you can't wait for the perfect data tracking solution. You can't wait for the statistician group to put on their priority list in some cases. So I would definitely